Let's turn attention now to the United States, where former President Donald Trump has pleaded not guilty to 37 felony counts related to his alleged mishandling of classified documents. He says the charges of withholding national secret files, obstructing investigation, and other claims made against him are politically influenced in opposition against his presidential re-election ambition. It is the first time the U.S. Department of Justice has ever charged a former president with a crime. Trump was released by the court on his own recognizance after the 45-minute proceeding. As a condition for his release, he is barred from talking about the case with his aide, Walt Nauta, who was charged on 6 counts in a 45-page indictment about the case. Mr. Trump will not be required to relinquish his passport, and there will be no limit on his domestic or international travel. Mr. Trump appeared in Miami court in Florida Tuesday in defense of the charges against him.
Today we witnessed the most evil and heinous abuse of power in the history of our country. Very sad thing to watch. A corrupt sitting president had his top political opponent arrested on fake and fabricated charges of which he and numerous other presidents would be guilty. Right in the middle of a presidential election in which he is losing very badly. This is called election interference and yet another attempt to rig and steal a presidential election. More importantly, it's a political persecution like something straight out of a fascist or a communist nation. This day will go down in infamy, and Joe Biden will forever be remembered as not only the most corrupt president in the history of our country, but perhaps even more importantly, the president who, together with a band of his closest thugs, misfits, and Marxists, tried to destroy American democracy. But they will fail, and we will win bigger and better than ever before.
And for more on the current judicial scrutiny of the former U.S. President Donald Trump, a global affairs analyst, Calvin Dark, joins me from the United States Capitol, Washington, D.C. Good to have you join us.
Good to be here.
Interesting times in the U.S. Former President Trump has always played this down as a political witch hunt. But judging by his countenance in and out of court yesterday, and a statement he made to Political where he said, quote, "I don't care that my poll numbers went up a lot. I don't want to be indicted." It would seem like he understands the implication of all of this.
Yes, he does. And, you know, one of the expressions that we have here in the United States is don't make a federal case out of this. That just, you know, is a reminder of how serious this situation is. And also, one of the things we have to remember, although the former president's case is very different, prosecutors on the federal level rarely bring charges that they don't think they can get a conviction on or get a guilty plea on. I think the rate is somewhere in the high 90%. So I think what we saw yesterday was, even though Trump has a political argument and he had in his speech, you know, his defense and his supporters were clapping over it, he knows that that doesn't have anything to do with what may happen in the courtroom and what the jury may say with these 37 charges against him.
And while he was speaking in that clip that we played a few moments ago, he was speaking in New Jersey, addressing a group of supporters. He described himself as a president keeping his own documents. But he said particularly that the law that applies to his case is not the Espionage Act, but the President's Records Act. I just wanted to speak on that.
Yes, that's one of the things that former President Trump has been saying since the beginning of this. That's completely inaccurate. He wasn't charged under the Presidential Records Act, and that referred to documents that, you know, for example, most presidents have a library after they're out of office. So, you know, they have photos, mementos, letters, and those types of things. They would maybe work with the National Archives to decide, okay, what belongs to the government and what belongs to them personally. But that has nothing to do with the charges in this case. He had documents that were about national security, that were prepared, that had our most valuable secrets and had secrets about our allies' military capabilities. He never, under any circumstance, had a right to have those after he was president. And not only did he have them, he didn't give them back when the archives found out that he had them. And on top of that, he was showing them to people who didn't have a clearance after he wasn't supposed to have them himself. So when he talks about the Presidential Records Act, it's not really relevant, but that's something he's been using with his supporters that unfortunately some of his supporters are buying into.
Mm. But that line there, the Presidential Records Act, do you think that that's perhaps a line or the line of defense that his lawyers might toll?
I think that Trump may want them to. Now, one of the things that we're going to see is, as I mentioned to you, that he's not charged with anything under the Presidential Records Act, and that doesn't really apply here. One of the things we got to keep in mind with Donald Trump, that he has a problem getting a legal team together. One of the reasons is he's notorious for not paying his legal bills, but then also attorneys know they can't just say anything in court. It's not a crime for Trump to make accusations, many of them unfounded, as he did in his speech last night, but those same things can't be said in court. No lawyer is going to risk their professional license to do that. So while we may see that on the campaign trail, I doubt the lawyers will bring this up as a defense because they know it's not a defense and they know it could put them and their careers in jeopardy.
And let's look more broadly into this, especially with the Republican Party. We haven't had so much. Yeah, there have been a few lawmakers in Congress who have, stood against this, and then also some presidential hopefuls in the Republican Party have also spoken out. But majority of them, especially the major ones, and I use the word major because they are the popular ones. For example, Nikki Haley and Mike Pence haven't really criticized him as one expected. Why is that?
It's the reason why they haven't criticized him. It's not because they don't believe what he did was reckless, and there's a tape of him talking about it, so it's not as if these are fabricated. What they know is that there's between 30 and 40% of the Republican Party that's locked in supporting Trump, no matter what he does, or at least nothing that he's done so far. And they know that while that group won't decide the general election, that group will decide the Republican nomination that they'll have to win before they can go against Joe Biden. So they're trying to thread this needle very carefully of standing up for what is pretty clear that no one should do if you're a former president with documents, but knowing if they go too hard, they won't get the support of Trump's base and then will not win the Republican nomination. So that's why you're seeing they're kind of hedging what they're saying.
What about President Biden? What would be the optics of him using this, against Trump during his campaign?
I don't think you're going to see any of that at all. You're not going to see it from Biden. You're not going to see it from his campaign for two reasons. One is Biden made sure from the very beginning that he didn't want to give the appearance of political interference. So not only did he remove himself from it, but his own attorney general appointed a special counsel who was in charge of this investigation to really separate him from it. And commenting on it while it's going on will give that impression that there's political interference. The second political reason why Biden won't be talking about it is let's look at the split screen. If you've got Trump, the leading candidate for the Republicans as of now, in court, defending actions that most people believe shouldn't really be defended, talking about 2020, talking about Hillary Clinton, who lost 7 years ago. And on the other side, you got Biden signing bills, shaking hands, talking about the things that he wants to do for the economy, for crime, for immigration, everything like that. Politically, it's a better look for Biden to be seen doing the job that he's asking the American people to give him another 4 years of being able to do. So I think for those reasons, you won't hear Biden saying much about this at all.
But in the end, how does this play out for Trump? You saw his supporters yesterday in court, and you saw how just when he was driving, his motorcade was driving past, that show of support for him. We've seen his poll numbers increase. We've seen donations made to his campaign. This doesn't mean that he cannot run for office In the end, how does this play out for him?
Well, now the legal process really won't have anything to do with the support and the politics we see outside. The only thing that might have an effect on is they're going to have to choose a jury from that area in Miami, and so there's a chance that you could have people on a jury who supported former President Trump. But now, when it comes to what could happen to him, apart from the legal part, it's going to be very hard for him to win the general election against Biden, because think about it. Biden got millions more votes last time. And since 2020, we've had January 6th, we've had the indictment in New York, there's an indictment expected in Georgia. I don't think there are going to be many people who didn't vote for him in 2020 who are now going to say, oh yeah, I think I'm going to vote for him now. And so he has a lower chance to win in the general election. However, he is hoping that if he wins, that he can end the prosecution, which he would be able to do as president, or if a Republican wins, that there'll be pressure for them to end the investigation or pardon him if he's found guilty. So that's a long ways away, but I think that's what he's thinking about.
A lot to watch out for. I mean, there are 2 more indictments coming, and that's a lot of trouble for the former president. Thanks so much for talking to us. I'm Calvin Dack, Global Affairs Analyst.